Hello and welcome to Channels Book Club. My name is Olakunle Kasumu, and it's great to be on the show today. Our book for the week and our author for the week, The Road to Value, Irene Agunbiade, what a book she's written. Irene gets us to think about some very serious, very deep things in this book titled The Road to Value. Things like purpose. What is the purpose for our lives? Why are we here? Anybody who answers that question, who finds an answer to that very serious question, will likely live a very productive life. But it's not just purpose. What are the values that drive us? The values that determine our decisions and the things we do with our lives, the way we spend our time, and the kinds of relationships we build, and the kinds of careers that we pursue, and all those things. Well, Irene talks about value here, and she centralizes value as the core thing we need to be able to really, truly succeed in life. Well, let me allow Irene Agunbiade to talk about values. She's written everything in this book, which I've thoroughly enjoyed reading. But let's get to meet with her and then enjoy the conversation.
Irene Agunbiade is a leadership, change, and organizational consultant and author. Agunbiade has over 20 years of senior management experience in the United Kingdom's banking industry, and experience cuts across industries and geographies. Agunbiade has authored 8 books, including Rising Empowered to Become a Woman of Value and From Concept to Asset, amongst others. She joins Channel's Book Club to discuss her latest book, The Road to Value.
Irene Agunbiade, nice to have you on Channels Book Club.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. Well done. Wow, it's been a while we've been having this discussion about having this recording. I'm so glad we are making it happen now. The road to value. Lots of things to think about in your book. But let's get started with, I like to ask authors anytime I get the opportunity of speaking to authors, what's the story behind the book? What inspired this book?
Good question. I found myself thinking about that just the other day when I was, thinking about this book. It was during the pandemic. And of course, we were all at home, we didn't, we couldn't go, anywhere at the time. And I felt led to write about this book. And at the time, I didn't actually know what the title was going to be. I just had a few thoughts in my mind, and I just put them to paper, put them on paper. And as I started writing, the inspiration kept on coming. And I started to, things began to unravel. And by the time it was done, when it actually became, in fact, I didn't actually know the kind of impact that the book was going to have until people started reading it and started to give me feedback about the impact that it was having in their lives.
I'll come to that very, very soon, but I wish there was some kind of way, of course, sounds almost almost impossible, to find out how many books were written during the pandemic. It's incredible the number of authors I've spoken to, and their books, were created, were written during the pandemic. It's just amazing. When you were just telling your own story now, my mind was just going through, the long list of writers and authors who published or wrote their books during the pandemic. So, well, like they say, there's always something good in very bad from that come out of very bad experiences. So, kudos, well done. And I like the story. I like the inspiration behind the book, and more importantly, I like the book which we are digging into right now. If you talk about value, and value is the subject of this book, and value is the word that just jumps at you almost every page in this book. Let's get started by understanding, what do you mean by value? When we say value, the road to value, what is value?
The dictionary describes value as the worth, the importance, or the relevance of a thing. So the importance, the relevance, and the importance something is deemed to have. So when you look at a person, so that would be the importance of a person, the relevance, the worth that that person has. So that is the context in which I looked at this book. That is the context in which I presented my findings, my research, my submissions about this book. So that is value. Value is, compared to success, which is what we have always known. Success is something we are more comfortable defining. Success is something that the world over we are all very, very clear about, so to speak. We define success comfortably. We relate with success, on our own terms, or depending on how we view success. However, when you ask people to define value, when you ask people to share their thoughts about what value is, then people start to struggle a bit. Value is not something that is not a word that is used so often in our society. It's not a word that is used so often in homes, in discussions, whereas success has, for a very long time, even up till now, is something that is discussed everywhere. So in writing this book, my submission to people is that we should be talking more, be looking more at what value is, be operating more in line with value. That value should be the new success. In fact, value is the new success. When you look in our society, when you look in homes, when you look into the lives of people, there is a great yearning for something more. There is a great yearning for something more, even with all our talk about success, with all our familiarity with success. There's always been this yearning for something more. When you look at in leadership, for instance, when a leader comes into power, whether in government, even in a church, in a religious setting, in a workplace, people are looking for something other than the accolades, other than the CV that the leader comes with, other than the experience, the expertise that the leader brings. They want to know how that leader and their leadership will impact them. They want to know, after all is said and done, how much of an impact is whatever it is you're bringing, whatever your success, whatever your CV, whatever your education, your qualifications, what impact is that going to have in my life? What kind of impact are you going to have on my business? What kind of impact are you going to have on my company's, bottom line? So that is value in a nutshell.
Interesting, Irene. I would like you to further explore that difference between value and success, because it is one of the standout themes in your book, and I found it very intriguing reading your book. The difference between value and success, and your argument that we should focus more on value, the need to focus more on value, the importance of focusing more on value rather than success. And you are right, we emphasize success a lot. We want to be successful financially and materially and professionally. And we talk success, success all the time. So, but somebody's watching out there and is curious, especially when you've had success on your mind for many years or decades. And somebody now writes that, look, you know what, let's focus more on value rather than success. It can get a little bit complicated in terms of, grasping, if you get what I mean. I struggle with that a little bit as I read your book, but I would like you to explain it a bit more. If I offer more value, you wrote, I will inevitably find success. Does that mean that if I'm chasing success, I may not necessarily offer value? Is that correct, or is that confusing? Did I get that right from what you wrote?
That is absolutely correct for me. That is absolutely correct. You see, like I said before, a lot of conversations that we have been having up till now is about success, which is what we understand. And when we start talking about value, what people need to see is that, okay, let me first define what success is, or what dictionary defines success as. The dictionary, Oxford Dictionary, defines success as the accomplishment of a goal. The accomplishment of a goal. So you set yourself a goal, you achieve it, you are deemed to have been successful, no matter, regardless of what it is you're doing. So if you set yourself a goal to achieve a PhD program, for instance, and you have achieved it, you will be deemed to have been successful, because that is the goal that you defined or set for yourself. In your achievement of a PhD degree, you have not actually impacted anyone, or you have not offered value until you actually do something with that degree that you have obtained. So in that example, in that scenario, value has not been dispensed. Achievement or success has been achieved because a goal was set and achieved. So what we are saying is that in looking at that scenario, how can I, in achieving my PhD degree, when I define my goal, can I define my goal as I want to achieve a PhD degree so that I can then do such and such with it? After obtaining my PhD degree, then I will go on to do this and do this to benefit other people. And that is when you start to offer value. In offering value, like you rightly identified, I can tell that you have actually read that book. You can have value and also be successful, because success is embedded in value. When you do it correctly, when you understand it correctly, you can have value. Set yourself a goal to achieve value and also achieve success along the way. So you, in that sense, achieve your PhD degree, and at the end of it, when you have defined your goals very, very smartly, then the result is that you will go on, depending, let's say, depending on the PhD, the field of study, then you would go on to impact people. If it's a health-related field, in the health industry, this is how I will help mentally challenged people. I will help such and such number of people. So that is value. Looking at another example, maybe you are going into a position of leadership in government. You've come with your, maybe you've been a minister or you've been a commissioner, you're looking at, you have done that successfully. You have come with so many, recognitions, awards, or whatever. But what is important to me in this new position that you're vying for, where you're looking for my votes, is how can you make my situation better? So if you come and say, oh, when I came, let's look at the states, for instance. The states had £1 million worth of debt when I came. And when, by the time I'm leaving office after 4 years, the state now has all the debts wiped off. I have cleared all the debts that the state had. And that's in my manifesto, that I was going to clear off the debts of the state. So the state does not have any more debt. The state is debt-free. So I have been successful in that scenario, in that example. Whereas I, as an indigene of the state, I'm looking at where I was 4 years ago when you came into power, when you came into office. I'm looking at my situation, the unemployment rate. I'm looking at the fact that I'm no better off now than when you came in 4 years ago. I'm looking at the fact that my children have not been able to get the kind of education that they should have been able to have. I'm looking at the fact that my family have not been able to put 3 square meals on the table we have not moved ahead, even though you have, cut the debts. So my value, the value that you want to create, your relevance, your impact on my life is not there. That's just another example. So I could go on and on, so many examples, but that's just two.
True.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Perfectly. The Road to Value is the title of your book. I would like you to explain. I mean, if you say the road to, then that connotes a journey. The road to value. It's a journey. I would like you to explain this title and then take the viewers through what we will find in this book. Maybe you might just want to run through how it's sectionalized or the chapters, and your thinking behind the way you've organized and structured it.
Thank you very much for that question. The Road to Value is actually a book that seeks to make the reader or help the reader understand. So often we read books, self-improvement books, which tells us a lot of things about, okay, this is what you should be doing, but it doesn't actually tell us how, to do it or how we can get there. So a lot of self-improvement books, and I'm not knocking any book here, I'm not just, that's not what I'm saying. But a lot of things tell us, or a lot of situations, maybe we attend conferences, people tell us this is where we should be, or this is where you ought to be, but actually not actually showing us the steps to get there. So what I have sought to do, and which I believe that I have managed to do, based on the feedback that I have received, is to help people to identify where they are. So everyone gets to understand this is where I am. Not knocking where we are, because we all have to start from somewhere. So it helps you to really, there are assessments in the book, sections in the book. So it starts from, where are you? Who are you? These are questions the book asks of you, the reader. Who are you? Do an assessment. What is your goal? What are you all about? What would you like in life? What is it that is important to you? So it helps you to think about things that maybe you have not really thought about before. And it helps you to be able to internalize or personalize a lot of things as well. So it takes you through identification, self-identity, who are you? What are you all about? What are you going, what would you like to see? What are the things stopping you? What are the things, what are your strengths? What will help you get? So it goes through, and then there are sections in the book that, encourages you to ask yourself questions and to answer the questions. And based on the question or the answers to your questions, it takes you forward into the next step. So it helps you it walks you by the hand to where you are going. And I recognize that, I understand that this is different for different people because we all have different goals. So this book is good for everyone, regardless of where you are, what you're doing, what your background is. Business people have read it. They have been able to identify with it. They've been able to align with the steps in the book. Career people, professional people have been able to use it successfully to identify and to reach, their goals.
I'm going to ask you to read from this book, Irene. But before then, there is a national application of this subject that I find interesting. This subject of value, as the individual ought to focus on value, increasing value, being more valuable, adding value. The at a national level, it also applies, and you explained this. I'd like you to say something about this before I ask you to please read an aspect of the book to viewers out there.
Yes, again, I want to thank you for that question, Kunle. This is very, very important. Value is something that we need to look at all levels, at all levels. And I think we should start to have that conversation even from home, from when the children, our young ones, when the children are young, have value conversations with them. It's all in the book, where I think in the section value and or having value conversations. Introduce value in the home, introduce value in the schools. So it's relevant that schools read and understand this book. This is a very valuable tool for students, for teachers to use, for schools to use, for families to use, for leaders in the homes to introduce into their homes. People in these sectors, I'm saying this because people in these sectors, I have read this book since it came out, and they have testified to how much it has impacted their lives at the national level. Without a doubt, we need this. We need to have this value. We need to have, so you see, when we understand what value is, you will understand that a lot of people's yearning is for value. What we know that we want something, but we're not actually getting it. Something seems to be outside of our reach. Something seems to be so near yet so far. What that thing is value. So by the time people read this book, because of time, I won't be able to, as much as I, would love to. By the time people read this book and understand what it is, then we start to have that conversation. As our children go out, they talk to their friends about value. We don't just talk about, when I grow up, when you ask someone, what would you like to do when you grow up? When I grow up, I'd like to have a big house. I'd like to own this. I'd like to do that. We will start to change the way that we talk. We will start to talk about, when I grow up, all these people on the roads that are suffering, all these people that are crying, when I grow up, when I get rich, when I get, whatever it is that I'm getting, then I will be able to do this. I will be able to eradicate poverty. I will be able to make people's lives better. So I hope that answers the question that you asked.
It does, Irene. That is so important. An observation I've made myself when talking to young people, and I ask them, what do you want to become in future? And they say, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be this and that. I said, yeah, that's good, but that's not enough. And now that I've read your book and I've listened to you, I think the word value will start coming up in those conversations in the future. I never used to use the word value, but I used to say that's not enough. What do you want to do with becoming a lawyer or becoming a doctor? How will that affect the lives of people? You need to think about how you can impact the lives of people. I guess that is what you're saying, value. And that's a very powerful one, I believe. Thank you for explaining that. Before you go, I'm going to ask you to please, very briefly, because we are running out of time, just read a very short aspect of your book and just give a final word on it, and it will be a wrap.
Okay. That's a very tough ask. There's so many important aspects of this book, but because of time, I will just have to stick to one aspect like you asked. Okay. I'll read from page 177 of the book.
Okay.
Page 177 of the book. And second paragraph, it says, success is about achieving results, and that varies depending on the objectives. When those results also impact others positively, when they are focused on doing things right, proffering solutions and making lives better for others, then success has gone up another level. It has now added value. This is success at a higher level. Material things and resources are tools to add value to the lives of others. Let your fingerprint be value and leave it everywhere you go. and on everything or anyone you touch. Let your success be measured by the value you add and not the size of your material possessions. So that is page 177.
Wow.
And I think it's absolutely what this book is all about.
A round of applause from me here. That's so powerful. Thank you very much, Irene. Thank you for joining us on Channels Book Club. Thank you for writing this book, The Road to Value. And it sounds like you are on a campaign. It's beyond writing a book. You are trying to campaign and push the idea of us focusing on value. And I think that's a very, very powerful thing to do. That's a very important mission. And I wish you all the very best. Thank you for joining us on Channels Book Club.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking about it and talking to you. Thank you.
Values, 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 values. She only said just a little bit of all she wrote in this book. So much packed in here. And such an important subject. We need to really begin to think in line with values. Values, values, values. Family values, national values, individual values, corporate organizational values. Just too important. Well, this is where we have to end the show. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. My name is Olakunle Kasumu. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.